I forgot maybe one of the most important ones. My name is Mandy Russo. I'm the Executive Director with the Whistler Institute. For those of you I have not met, thank you for coming. The Whistler Institute, if you're not familiar, we bring educational programming and thought-provoking speaker series to Whistler. We wouldn't be able to do this without our funders, and I wanted to recognize the McLean-McCog Foundation, Bob and Sue Adams, the Resort Municipality of Whistler, and the Lightburn Family Fund, who, directed by way of Steve Bailey, provided some funding this year, and we greatly appreciate that. Tonight's event is part of our Global Perspective speaker series, where we source experts and leaders in their field to come here and open our minds. Whistler's iconic for our adventure tourism. We have a thriving arts and culture scene, and the Whistler Institute is proud to be bringing education into that mix. A bit of housekeeping. I encourage you to take a moment to reach into your pockets and your bags to make sure your phone is on silent, just in case. For those that aren't familiar with the venue, restrooms are downstairs to the right. There is a photographer on site, the lovely Hannah Ferguson. She'll be floating around. And the event is being recorded and will be available for rewatching and sharing with your friends. Tonight, we're very fortunate to have digital strategist Kris Krüg with us. Kris will be sharing mind-bending examples of AI, what's going on in BC's tech sector, and how this work is being applied globally. At 7 o'clock, we'll have a Q&A, and our board vice chair, David Cronin, will be closing out our session. So about Kris. As founder and CEO of Futureproof Creatives, Kris is all about democratizing creativity, empowering communities, and championing sustainability. Kris's camera has been his passport to documenting global movements and capturing the essence of change makers for over 2 decades. Now, he's diving deep into the AI revolution, exploring how we can harness its power to amplify creativity rather than replace it. And in this digital era where tech often overshadows humanity, Kris is on a mission to flip the script. And I think it was also humanizing to share that Kris came to us by way of Mr. Mayor Jack Crompton, who went to summer camp with Kris. So thank you so much, and I'll welcome Kris to the stage.
Check, check. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much, Mandy, for the introduction, and to Whistler Institute for having me here. It is nice to see some friendly faces from the past here, like Jack. We actually went to Trinity Western University together, and we were young life leaders, and we coached a basketball team together back in like 1995, I think. So it's nice to be back in your presence and stuff, and I see a lot of other friendly faces around too, so welcome. I've been publishing online since the 90s. I started building websites to put myself through university. Then I was a part of the social media revolution, and that led me into being able to travel the world with a camera in my hand, and I got to work for National Geographic and Rolling Stone, and really I was teaching other artists and creatives how to empower themselves digitally, how to get their work online at a time where people were afraid if they put their work online, people would steal it, and that they would, lose revenue. And we've actually learned the opposite is true. The more stuff you can put out there and the farther it can go, the more presence and followers you'll have and the bigger your business will grow. So that was a really exciting time. And that, like I said, was leading me around the world making photos, and pandemic rolled around. I had a place on Galliano, and all my work and travel dried up right away. And I was pandemic farming over there, growing vegetables and had some animals when in the fall of 2022, AI reached its tendril out to grasp me there on Galliano Island and really just kind of like woke me all the way back up. It brought me back into connection with a lot of people I had been connected with at the earlier parts of my life and stuff. And I started sleeping less. I was just really captivated by it all. I was experimenting with it all the time. And I started an online server and asked all my friends to join. And together we embarked upon a learning journey that leads us like right up until this very moment. So I'm going to unpack a whole bunch of stuff for you guys, but I run a company and I run a community and a nonprofit that does some meetups around the AI space, and I'm just, I have a show on CBC on the early edition with Stephen Quinn called Sandboxing AI with Kris Krüg, where we talk about the cultural and societal issues of some of this stuff. And so that's a little bit of way of introduction of me. And I got a little acknowledgement I want to read myself. How you guys doing tonight? Everyone good? All right, cool. Yeah, thanks. I'm a little bit nervous, obviously. I've gotten a lot of support. I put a lot of time into this presentation. I'm really excited to share it with you. And I got a lot of support from my community as reached out asking people what I should talk about. And I got this message this morning from a guy called Praveen Pralay, which some of you guys may know. He said, have fun with the crowd in Whistler tonight. Noted, it's taking place at the Maury Young Art Center. Maury was a mentor of mine, a thorough and humble gentleman with a keen sense of business and how to invest in culture and community. His wife, Mary, was equally gracious and unpretentious. Maury boldly financed my landing on the West Coast after I was invited in ceremony to bring my being here. It was true kuleana, as the Hawaiian might refer to it, or dharma, as my yogic culture heritage would know it. At the same time, I was on loan to the feds from Doctors Without Borders and quit all that to be a wilderness guide in Whistler, working alongside First Nations elders and youth of all nations. This program was called Rediscovery. Maury and I would go on long walks together. He unfortunately passed a few years later. However, his transmission and his spark around how to conduct oneself in this world remain in my work to this day. Maury seldom put his name on anything. This building and others are likely legacy acts of his family and those many people whose lives he influenced profoundly. Anyway, thought you might be interested in the beingness of the space where you're tonight. Be well. You did not hear this from me, but blessings for having the fortitude to fulfill your kuleana dharma. Looking forward to connecting with you in this living legacy across space and time, exploring the dances elegantly as we experience manifest destiny down south and colonial shenanigans here in Canada. So I just wanted to acknowledge the space we're in, the Whistler Institute, and all the things that happen to bring us here. Okay, I got a lot of ground to cover. Let's go. First, I want to start by diving into all the amazing stuff that's going on in BC when it comes to AI. And I'm going to take you on a journey, and I want you to set aside technical things. We're going to talk some philosophy tonight. I'm going to show you some very interesting, far-out stuff. And I want to reframe some of this as not that this is coming, BC is poised to lead the creative AI future in our entertainment industry, film studios, all the amazing things that make up our creative digital economy here in BC. And so I want to show you a perspective tonight about creative empowerment, and not that these things are coming for our jobs or going to steal, what makes us human. So I want to focus tonight on some of that stuff, what makes us human. I'm going to talk about empathy. I'm going to talk about intuition, critical thinking, and creativity, and some stuff like that. I'm going to focus on 4 labs and projects and people, companies here in BC that are doing really amazing stuff. The first one is called the Meta Creation Lab at the School of Interactive Arts and Technology at Simon Fraser University. The second is a company called Volumetric Capture Systems that's inventing very futuristic hardware and software to make immersive storytelling possible in ways that we've just never seen before. I'm going to tell you the story of Nirvanic AI that's putting consciousness into AIs as a matter of safety, which sounds scary, but I'm going to unpack that for you and explain why it might be a good idea in some cases. And finally, I'm going to tell you the story of the Vancouver AI Community Meetups, which is a 1,000-person community in Vancouver that meets up monthly and shares ideas and explorations, learnings around AI, and is building a collaborative community out of which all sorts of companies and projects are spawning. All right. Who knows what the Las Vegas Sphere is? All right, who's been there? Cool. Was it good? Come tell me about it afterwards. This guy Tobias, so first of all, the Vegas Sphere is the most amazing immersive experience on the planet right now. And then there's this DJ called Anima who's been doing these crazy shows. And so he got a residency at the Spheres. Well, this guy from BC went to Vancouver Film School, started a company in British Columbia. He recently built technology for this New Year's show that I'm about to show you and tell you about. So let us. That's Las Vegas. proprietary, portable, geodesic Buckminster Fuller dome full of cameras. It's got like 250 8K cameras in it. And they use machine learning and AI to feed all the terabytes and terabytes of real-time data that's being created inside this dome into a model that builds a 3D environment of a space that doesn't exist. Then they build virtual cameras in this space and are able to fly around it. And then he didn't even get a chance to visit the spheres before he went there, so he built the environment in an Apple Vision Pro and mapped all 250 of these cameras via this machine learning AI model onto this dome in his VR, transferred it to these guys. And specifically, he got to do the climactic shots of the whole thing, which, come on, buddy. Is you can see the tiny little people at the bottom there. This is from inside the dome.
Sentience, contain, explain, or virtual existence.
Nothing like this has ever existed or been possible. Just imagine being in there and just the reality distorting, perspective shifting.
Sentience.
Creating things like this requires hardware that never existed, pipelines and processes and workflows that never existed, software that never existed, and the ways we're going to use it are just still emerging. We don't even know yet. And so in this way, it's creating this whole new immersive storytelling industry that's weeks old. Next thing I'm going to show you is a research lab at Simon Fraser University, the School of Interactive Art and Technology. This place has been around for 25 years. This is Philippe Pasquet, a Parisian-French guy that runs the studio. One of the problems that us artists have ethically with AI is that it's been trained on all the stolen work of all mankind without our permission or consent, with no compensation, no visibility truly even into what they took or how they're using it. And yet, having done that, they've dropped us off these amazing, futuristic intelligences and consciousnesses that we get to choose how to understand and interact with. And it doesn't mean that's the only way they can ever be. In fact, it's up to us users to define the futures that we want and to call these companies and technologies into building the stuff that we want to use that fits with the values that us humans have about this world and how it should work. So these guys they built some tools that allow artists to train small language models on only our data sets. So I use their tool. I was a photographer for 20 years. I fed all my life's work into a blank slate of a machine consciousness that had never seen a human face before, it had never seen anything before. And I trained it for thousands and thousands of epochs on these photos, asking it to choose, make different decisions, which ones were which, and it started to develop senses of eyes and noses and ears and stuff. This is what the tool looks like that they built. This is the data set that I trained it on. These portraits that I had made, cross-processed analog film from 25 years of traveling and seeing faces. I standardized the data sets by putting all their eyes on the same plane and the same distance apart so that the computer could kind of make sense and see what I was trying to say to it. So that's what its training data was. Then, using this tool from SFU, I was able to walk through the dream space of the machine, the 512 dimension vector database where all this training data lives, where all these, it's not like a database where a face is retrieved from it. It's all these constituent parts in an infinite dimension of ears and noses and eyes or whatever. And all these faces are faces that I found in its dream space, and it's, before prompting it, before giving it a prompt, I used this visualization tool that SFU built to walk through a path of its brain and see different things that emerged. Yeah? So
are they sort of assembled faces?
Assembled is almost right. They're generated. They're not retrieved, they're created based on what it thinks we look like, based on what I showed it we look like. And that's why you see a lot of texture in these, because a lot of them were these film photos and these cross-processed ones, and so while these may not be perfect faces yet, it is definitely my photographic style. It's definitely my fingerprint, and we're just getting started. And so I own all the data that goes into it, and I own all the data that comes out of it. It's mine. And so this gets around a lot of the ethical concerns that people have, and you can use it for illustration, you could use it for video, people are using it for music, training models on all the music they've ever written that now understands their compositional style, not to replace it and make new songs with it, but to give them new tools in their palette to do new creations that have never existed before. A few of my favorite kind of weird things that came out along the way while I was training things. It doesn't know about sex or gender. It just knows what I show it. And so it's morphing different parts back and forth, trying to find similarities and commonalities. And it's very interesting. So this is what this computer thinks we look like based on what I showed it. The next thing I want to show you is nirvanic consciousness systems. This is Suzanne Gildert. She started 2 companies in BC that are huge. One's called D-Wave, it's a quantum computing company. Another one's called Sanctuary AI. It's our federal government just invested $150 million in their robotics program. It's going to be a big year for robots because in the tech world we talk about like the tech tree where certain advances unlock other advances, or to get to this far off advance you got to complete all these other things first. There's a lot going on simultaneously right now. Like all this GPT OpenAI stuff, they're able to download it into the brain of what used to be a dumb robot. People are off making robots, people are off making AI. There's been some successes, and now they can bring them together. And now these robots can learn things by watching them. The robots already got eyeballs, and they already got hands, but to train them to use those hands was pretty complicated. Well, now they just have to watch a human do something 1 or 2 times, and they start to, because they got the AI in the brain now, and they start to be able to learn and train themselves. So I'm going to let Suzanne talk a little about her work in her own words here for a second.
We don't know.
Actually, that's the second one.
I think we absolutely have to understand consciousness and what it is. So people tend to fall into 1 or 2 camps. They say, oh, AI will never be conscious. In that case, what we're building is increasingly intelligent, more and more powerful tools that then can be used by others. So others control them, others decide the morality and the goals of those systems. So you can ask if that's what you want. The other option is you think AI will just become conscious. Suddenly, emergently, in a way that we don't understand. And that's even more scary, maybe, because then we won't know what's going on. We won't know what kind of consciousness it has. And I think for us, consciousness is everything we are. Like, it's everything we experience, it's how we relate to each other, it's everything we feel. So I think we just need more research into it. We need to be able to understand it so then we can carefully put it in if and when we choose to in AI.
So these concepts are pretty far out, but they're not super technical, so I want you to follow with me for a second. So Suzanne's interested in consciousness, and she's interested in quantum computing. And she thinks there's a connection between those 2 things. She thinks that much in the same way that quantum situations, all the possibilities are possible until you observe the thing, in which case the whole situation collapses down and becomes this reality. That's kind of the quantum theory of consciousness. She thinks that that can be now put onto a chip and put into computers such that it could be utilized by AIs for certain things like this.
This is the answer yet. There's some tantalizing evidence, but say we're right. I want to stress, like, this is a scientific hypothesis we're testing, but say the people, the scientists that are on the side of consciousness potentially being quantum, have access to quantum computers now where we can actually start building it into AI. What does this mean? I just want to bring it back to this driving analogy now. So when the self-driving car has driven thousands and thousands of miles.
The driving analogy in this case is we've all driven back and forth up and down the sea to sky. Sometimes you don't remember the drive at all. Other times something scary happens, all your systems come online, you're hyper-focused, hyper-attention, making emergency decisions, and then when things are safe, you kind of go back to normal driving. That's kind of what she's talking about here with AI. Most of the time they'll operate like they do now, but when something weird happens, they'll be able to switch into a more consciousness mode where they can make decisions based on the unique things in that environment.
And the route is always the same and the weather conditions never vary. They are doing it completely unconsciously, completely in an automated way. It'll be perfect. But what happens if something changes, if something is truly new, and then suddenly something really unexpected happens, like a tornado starts in front of you? The AI is not going to do very well. So, although people might think it's scary when they hear the phrase conscious AI, I want to argue that there's actually a safety argument for making AI conscious in certain situations where it absolutely has to be present, it's interacting in complex, dynamic social situations. Then you can turn the consciousness module up a little bit.
Pretty far out there. A lot more than just like using ChatGPT. And
We don't.
oops. I'm completely enamored with her work right now, and so is the rest of the world. She lives in Vancouver. She's from British Columbia. Like I said, she started 2 huge companies already. I think they're both worth $1 billion. This is her new little AI consciousness dog bot. It understands human emotions and can be empathetic. It's something that she uses to run her test code on and to start to experiment with these ideas in her lab. She took this down to San Francisco last week to raise some money, and it went viral. This is one of the main AI ethics researchers out there that snapped a photo of her dog, which is down below the fold there, and it went crazy. The whole world's paying attention to the work that she's doing up here in BC. The fourth little tale here, I want to tell you about how BC is already in a leadership position when it comes to creative AI, is our thriving little Vancouver AI meetup community. In January 2024, I started hosting monthly meetups in my studio at the Vancouver Biennale's art space in Olympic Village. They quickly outgrew the space after a few months, and we have had over 1,000 members join our events over the last year. They're a little bit different than what a lot of people would expect for tech meetups and events. I'm going to just show you a little video of our December event. We had a guy here I'm really proud of called Peter Lucas Jones from New Zealand. He's Time Magazine's number 77 most influential AI thought leader in the world. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about his work here, but he came and visited our event and gave a keynote last month. Oops. Welcome to the December Vancouver AI Community Meetup. You are the Vancouver AI community. Happy birthday to you. You sound so sleepy. Just take this, now leave me. I said, please don't slow me down.
So today I'm representing the Mid-Decoration Lab for Creative AI.
If you were a bird, what kind of bird would you be?
We developed the first indigenous language automatic speech recognition.
Dear future AI, there is still love.
BC has a passionate, connected group of super technical, super creative people that are sitting in a leadership position facing the future. But let's face it, Silicon Valley has kind of an organic, self-sustaining vibe to it through all of its success over the years, and BC isn't exactly that. We've got this really awesome, very consciously curated and tightly vertically integrated digital economy that's come through strategic government partnerships, things like tax credits and funding. I ran into an old friend tonight. We know a lady called Linda Brown who helped build the Center for Digital Media, raised like $80 million in the mid-2000s to build master's diploma of digital media, very forward-thinking thing. And there's a bunch of schools like that that are pumping out world-class grads. And there's these industry associations that have built and defended the industry through things like tax credits, lobbying for and receiving tax credits. It's resulted in, we have 11 of the top 12 gaming studios with a headquarters in Vancouver. We've got all these Hollywood North special effects, animation, gaming, film that have moved here, and you know the whole speculative real estate condo apartment thing in Vancouver? That's coming from schools feeding studios protected by industry associations with tax credits, those people buying apartments, the newly, Yaletown or Olympic Village, and the whole thing works, but it didn't happen by accident, and it's highly susceptible to fluctuations in its system. And what are we staring at right now? Like, most people think about jobs, job loss and replacement, and I'm trying to tell you there's new things coming as well, and we're right at the center of that. But we got some hard times to go through first. Generative AI isn't just like knocking at the doors of these industries, it's already like sitting on their sofa and raiding the fridge. A lot of people aren't hiring junior animators, special effects people, game design people right now. A lot of those jobs are things like take a senior designer's assets and turn it into a web thing and a TV thing and another thing. It's not highly creative work, it's production work in the professional creative industries. And these are the jobs that are at threat first. And it keeps me up at night a little bit. As a whole economy, as a whole system, like what are we going to do when 30% of the people in Vancouver who had very fancy high-end jobs are trying to reinvent themselves at the same time? Which is how I look at it. I look at it as an opportunity of growth and reinvention to continue to grow and upskill and become something new. And that kind of foreshadows some of the answers, I think, like if one piece falters in this whole system, if the studios shrink, if the grads can't find work, the whole structure could wobble. So I'm calling on businesses, on government, on investors, on other people to really step up right now and to put their money where their mouth is behind these industries that are both world leaders, but also slightly at risk. Like, we really can't bury our heads in the sand about this. We can either be like affected by it, or we can literally make the future. We can't let the whole world define what the future of the creative industries is all about without being at the table. And that requires doing research, having a vocabulary about this stuff, having connections, partnerships, but also being supported by institutions and people with vision inside government and other people. I'm asking for investments in upskilling and retraining of workers. People are needing to be ready for AI-centric jobs of the future. We need to reimagine the whole education system. I mean, research is coming out right now that like kids that use AI tutors through elementary and high school move 2 orders of magnitude up the performance charts, like 25% better at the bottom end, simply by just having access to these tools. And that's in current classroom environments. That's not even really with having us rethought the assignments we're giving them, the readings we're asking them to do, the curriculums or approach or any of that stuff. Just with old system, new tool, 2 orders of magnitude better for the worst student in the classroom. And what we're doing right now is criminalizing our students instead. We're using AI detectors to find the cheaters. Well, Brenda Bailey, Minister of Finance, when she was Minister of Innovation, she was telling me, Kris, I've looked into this stuff. Those AI detectors, you know what they're good at finding? Newcomers to Canada who've used AI to get the language right inside their stuff. She's like, it more often finds bias and exposes like bias in the system than it does find a cheater. And what do we want to do? Turn all our students into cheaters? No, we need to like find new whole ways of thinking about education and learning and skills and knowledge that take the modern stuff into existence. And that's like overhauling all of education is a pretty big challenge, We need to do strategic AI adoption funded by the government in some cases and find other ways of setting policy and doing funding so that we're relevant and can take our strong suits, creativity, community, grit, the natural environment, the lifestyle we get to live, and turn that into a leadership position in the future. Okay. That's a bit of a practical look at what's going on today, some of the companies and projects I'm interested in. What do you guys think of those things? Pretty interesting, yeah? Anyone heard of Nirvanic before? Definitely check them out. Suzanne's got a lot of things there on the internet. Okay, we're going to switch to a little more philosophical part of things now, where I want you guys to think about your role in BC's AI creative future. What type of future you want to live in and what type of relationship you would like to have when it comes to AI. We're going to watch another little video. I'm going to ask you a question. It's going to be about work, how you see work, what's the purpose of work anyway when the work doesn't need us anymore. I watched this podcast called Vorkesh Patel. He's got really interesting thought leaders on it. This guy is far out, who I'm about to show you. His name's Gwern. He is an anonymous internet researcher that has predicted everything that's going on with artificial general intelligence and the race towards superhuman consciousness. He's well respected by all the people that are making AGI right now. Because he's anonymous, he's represented here as a pseudonym. Bear with it.
Now that you know that AI is a thing that is coming, but basically what's your thinking around how you see your role in this timeline, and also how you're thinking about how to spend these next few years?
Turn it up a little, please.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that quite a lot. What do I want to do? You know, and what would be useful to do? Mm-hmm. I'm doing things now because I want to do them, regardless of whether it will be possible for an AI to do them in like 3 years. I do something because I want to, because I like it. You know, I find it funny or whatever. Or maybe I think carefully about kind of just doing the human part of it, like laying out a proposal or something. If you take seriously the idea of getting AGI in just a few years, you don't necessarily have to implement stuff and do it yourself. Mm-hmm. You can sketch out clearly like what you want and why it would be good. And then how to do it. Right. And then basically just wait for the better AGI to come along and actually do it then. Right. Unless, there's some really compelling reason to do it right now and pay the cost in terms of scarce time. Yeah. But otherwise, I'm trying to write more about what isn't recorded. Things like preferences and desires and evaluations and judgments. Things that an AI couldn't replace, even in principle. The way I like to put it is that the AI kind of can't eat ice cream for you, right? It can't decide for you which kind of ice cream you like. Only you can do that. And if anything else did, it would just be worthless, basically, because it's not your particular preference. And that's kind of the rubric for me, right? Like, is this something that I want to do regardless of any future AI because I enjoy it? Or is it something where I'm doing only the human part of it, maybe, and the AGI can later on do it? Or is this writing down something that's unwritten today, and thus helping kind of the future AI versions of me? So if it doesn't fall under one of those three, I've been trying to basically like not do it. And if you look at it that way, I think many of the projects that people do right now basically have like no lasting value. Right, they're doing things that they don't enjoy, which record nothing ephemeral, kind of a value that couldn't be inferred or generated later on. And I think they're at best kind of getting 2 or 3 years of utility out of whatever they're doing before it could have been done by an AI system.
Wait, your timeline for when AI could write a Word quality essay is 2 to 3 years?
I mean, I have ideas about how to make it possible, which might not require AGI if it kind of combined my entire corpus. But I think many potential essay ideas are already basically mostly done in my corpus. So you don't need to be like super intelligent to pull it out. But I mean, let's, talk about AGI in general. I think the Anthropic timeline of 2028 seems like a good kind of personal planning starting point, where even if you're wrong, you probably weren't going to do a lot of projects within the next 3 years anyway. So it's not like you really lost much by instead just writing down the description. You can always kind of go back and do it yourself later if you're wrong.
Let's unpack this. AGI is artificial general intelligence. It's an AI that's better at all things than humans. There's a lot of debate right now about whether we're there or not or yet. They call it kind of like a jagged frontier, meaning that right now, AI is better at humans than at some things. Other AIs are better at humans at this particular thing or this particular thing, like playing chess or playing Go or doing other things. But there's no AIs yet that are better at all humans at all things. But that's what they're going for, and they think they've got it figured out, and they're moving there fast. And so what they're talking about here is, like, when AGI comes, we're going to be able to speak an idea into existence. We'll be able to say, build me a technology company that specializes in camera systems, and it will deploy an HR department that goes and hires AI software engineers, and then a finance department that does accounting for them, all AI agents that spin up overnight while you sleep and drop your company off for you in the morning. This is the future that they're talking about. We're not there yet, but he's saying, the one guy's asking the other guy, let's assume you're right, AGI is going to be here in a couple years. How are you going to use these last few years? What are going to be the last few things you do while we're waiting around for AI to come? And he's like, well, pretty much I think I'm going to write. I'm going to get all my preferences out of me, all the things that are uniquely human, choices, what kind of ice cream I like, how I think about the world, values, philosophy, whatever, because all the others, and then I'll just tell the AIs to build it when they get sufficiently good. And if I'm wrong about that, it's no big deal anyway, because I've already got all these plans laid out for the future anyway. And most of the things that he thinks we're building right now, like companies or projects or films or whatever, are going to be almost immediately superseded by that generation of AGIs that come out and start overnight building everybody's stuff. So, time for a little reflection. Please pull out your phones or a pencil or paper if you feel comfortable. We're going to take a few minutes and do some independent thinking and writing here. I'd like for you to imagine us walking into this future together. And there's all the things that you do work right now on the computer. There's calendaring, and there's accounting, and there's communications, and there's making videos. And gradually, he's saying we're going to hand over these things one by one to the computers. So I want you to think for a minute, what's like the last thing you think you might hold on to before casting that off as well into computer land to do the work? And in his case, it's writing about his preferences, desires, hopes, and dreams. So I would like for you to answer this question in writing for the next couple minutes, and then I'm going to ask if anyone wants to share. We can rock a little of that background music if you want. Come on, pull out your phone, big boss man. "30 more seconds, so I got time to cover the rest of the ground." Okay, let's do a little popcorn so we can get a bunch of ideas out if possible. Who wants to speak first? Just shout it out. What's something you're going to hang on to? Walking in nature. Very good. Thank you. Embodied things in general. Yeah, you guys should go on some runs together. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Because that is going to be able to be turned over to AIs. They're going to be able to feed your kids, keep them safe, teach them stuff, but you're going to keep it because it means something to you. That's a really good answer.
My self-awareness.
I think of these things as self-awareness bots in some ways. They know us better than we know ourselves. We can feed, what he's talking about is corpus. He's talking about everything he's ever written down in the computer lands ever. He's brought it back into a central knowledge base where he can analyze it with AI and be like, extract the patterns of my last 30 years of writing.
Listening to music.
Yeah, man.
Painting.
Cooking.
Romance.
Yeah. You guys are getting close to some of the things, like, I mean, embodiment, critical thinking, some other things, preference expression. There's not, the list of things that humans can uniquely do is getting shorter and shorter. Okay, I got another clip for you. My old buddy
So
Warren
you wrote
again.
an interesting comment about getting your work into the LLM training corpus. You wrote, quote, "There has never been a more vital, hingy time to write." And I'm wondering whether you mean that in the sense of you are going to be this drop in the bucket that's steering the Shoggoth one way or another? Or do you mean it in the sense of making sure your values and persona persist somewhere in latent space?
I mean both. By writing, you are voting on the future of the Shoggoth using some of the few currencies it acknowledges, right? Like tokens that it has to predict.
By
If you aren't
you're voting
writing,
on the future.
you're kind of abdicating the future or abdicating your role in it. If you think it's enough to just be a good citizen, to vote for your favorite politician, to pick up litter and recycle, the future doesn't care about you.
Yeah.
There are ways to influence the Shoggoth more, but not many. And if you don't already occupy a handful of key roles or work at a frontier lab, your influence basically rounds off to zero. I think far more than ever before. If there are values you have, which are not expressed yet in text, and if there are things that you like or want, if they aren't reflected online, then to the AI, they basically don't exist. And that is dangerously close to won't exist. You're also creating a sort of immortality for yourself personally, right? Like you aren't just creating a persona, you are creating your future self too, right? What self are you showing the LLMs and how will they treat you in the future?
A lot of the smartest people I know right now are writing for the bots. They're just getting stuff out of their hearts and their heads and into the universe as a way to express to these new consciousnesses what humans are all about and the type of future we want to live in. Okay, we're going to do another exercise.
So you wrote an interesting
Not that one.
comment about. So you wrote an interesting
Uh-oh, we're trapped in a parallel dimension.
comment.
There we go. So by contributing to the AI's training data, we can ensure that think about like First Nations perspectives and stuff. And this is an especially touchy one because a lot of people want to be in ownership. They talk a lot about data sovereignty. I work for the Indigenomics Institute. That's where I work with Praveen, the guy who read the thing about Maury earlier. And, Indigenous folks want to be able to take advantage of these things, but a lot of them are also very fearful that this is colonialism, but stronger and faster. And I think if applied in the Silicon Valley ways of doing it, it is going to be extractive. And so it's like, how do we get these things into the systems such that these values, like he was saying, don't round off to zero, that they're not left behind and forgotten about? And so this time I want you to talk to somebody next to you. Oops, my little slide is missing there. But I want you to just talk to somebody next to you. We're going to do 2 minutes. And I want you just to think about future AIs and what they're like around empathy, around ethics, around values. Like, describe to each other and come up with some ideas about what you think human-centered ethical AIs will be like in the future and what we can kind of do to get there in terms of writing, getting our ideas out. So just have a conversation with the person next to you about how to influence the value of future AIs. the DJ and other people are like.
I think it's cool for them, like,
I was trying to get something. Yeah, and still. Take about 30 more seconds. Okay, I think we probably got time for like 1 or 2 comments right now if someone has something burning that they really want to share. Does anyone have like an insight or a soundbite? Or, yep, here I come.
Can AI be fed misinformation and lies?
Absolutely. I mean, in some ways, if you go to the fear side of the spectrum about looking at dystopian futures, one of the biggest fears is that these things are going to very subtly, without even having to lie to us per se, completely influence our decisions, options, information diet. Yeah, literally control our thoughts, but very, very subconsciously on a very pervasive level. It's definitely one of the dystopian futures that we should be thinking about.
Wondering about like interaction brain chips for humans to interact with AI on the speed of light, because won't AI, it'll be like us talking to a tree. It will be so slow compared to the speed of an AI's thinking capacity.
So this is a great setup, probably better for the Q&A, but I'm going to hit it now anyway. Elon Musk's new company is called Neuralink, and he's building these brain implants. He actually invented 3 technologies. He invented a robot surgeon that can install these hundreds of microscopic threads into your neural cortex. And then he built the actual implant itself, and then they built the software AI that controls the whole thing. The premise there, right now they're just fixing spinal cord injuries. But, yeah. I mean, I say that because it has read and write ability. So this thing can both read your thoughts, but then also write to your thoughts. They've got write turned off, obviously, because that is take control of your whole body via the system. So they're only fixing spinal cord injuries right now because we can't just go willy-nilly upgrading whatever humans have the most money to superhuman capabilities. It's better off and more, they're gonna get better social license for inventing these technologies if they're repairing damaged people. And so right now they're starting with people who have had spinal cord injuries, but their body actually has the pathways formed, and they're moving on then next to ocular nerve damage, where they're gonna be able to bypass the area of damage and repair vision amongst people who were born with sight, but have lost it. Back to the singularity. There's this concept of the singularity. It's that technological progress happens faster and faster each generation. It took 50 years for the TV to reach mass adoption. It took 25 years for the internet. It took 15 years for the mobile phone. It took 7 years for social media. It's going to take a lot less than that for AI, and it's going to keep collapsing down faster and faster. It used to be just that our great-grandparents had to have the remote control explained to them. But that phenomenon is going to happen to us younger and younger in life. Because even at my age, 48, there's been many successive generations of technology which I'm not native to, I didn't grow up with. And so just imagine as AI as AI research is taken over by AI researchers. That's where we're at this like hockey stick growth. And so all the AIs that we talk to right now, they've been written by humans for humans. But the next generation of AIs that's coming out is going to be written by AIs for AIs. And we're not even going to know what the heck they're talking about. And so his question was like, it's going to be like talking to a tree. It's like they want to upgrade us, or one plan is they're going to upgrade us. We're actually going to beg for it probably to get the chip so that we can talk to the computer without our thumbs or our fingers, which are severe impediments to talking to this super consciousness. That went longer than I thought for the thing, so I'm going to just move forward. I wanted to share with you guys some practical tips that I think you can do to buttress yourself against this time of increasing technological change and progress, I want you to adopt a daily writing practice, like 10 minutes of getting your thoughts out into paper or into the computer. I'm going to tell you later about what I want you to do with that stuff, but I just believe intrinsically in the process right now. I want you to do rapid AI prototyping with that, and all that really means is taking that week's worth of 10-minute writings, feeding them all into ChatGPT or something, and asking it what it thinks about it as a starting point. And just get into a dialogue with this AI about your 7 days of writing, and just see what happens, right? And then build a second brain. I've built a knowledge base that is the outputs of every smart conversation I've ever had with AI. Every blog post I've ever done, I'm going to transcribe tonight's talk. I'm going to put the text into my knowledge base. And then I can run AIs on top of that, where I'm like, I was talking about it earlier, extrapolate from 25 years of blog posts, the things I often talk about, relate that to my moods or other things around, like the patterns that it can see beyond what we can see are extensive. And I believe that right now, my version of, I'm going to write it all down and let the AIs do it later, is my second brain knowledge base. I'm just capturing everything I can about the world around me. And I have a special method for doing so that I want to share with you as well. This is my secret little thing. I build almost everything around it. It's much more profound than it looks on the surface. I got into this because my counselor told me to start journaling, and I was having trouble writing every day. And so I started recording my voice every day and using AI to transcribe it, and then using AI to process those thoughts and notes, and then putting that into a central repository knowledge base. This is like my secret sauce. A lot of us who work professionally, everyone knows we record all of our meetings now, and they just give you action items and to-do lists at the end of the meeting. We don't really take notes in meetings anymore. Just show up, hang out, talk, and the computer tells you what to do at the end. It even sends those out to everybody else. Hey guys, here's all your action items from the meeting I just held. I do this with all sorts of things. I do it with my dreams, with my nighttime dreams, my future dreams, my hopes and my fears. And it's a great way to get to know yourself, train the bots on the future of on our values, and to end up with a hyper-personalized, super comprehensive data set knowledge base that you can use for jobs or memoirs or training future AIs. It's going to be a very, very valuable digital asset moving forward. Okay, here we are at the end. I want to have everyone continue to think about the role you guys have to play in BC AI's future, how you can happen to it instead of letting it happen to you. These are some things I'm inviting you to do. Next Wednesday, we've got a meetup in Vancouver at the Space Center. That's not the science world, that's the planetarium. I have a workshop, 6-week workshop kicking off on Feb 4th for professionals to figure out how to wrap their heads around AI and to use it in their jobs. We have a film screening taking place in Vancouver called The Thinking Game about Google's DeepMind and the AlphaGo project, where a computer beat the world's best player at the world's hardest game. I've watched it twice this week. It's amazing. I want you to start writing every day. I think it'd be great to set up a knowledge base, start pumping stuff into it. Again, I refer you to the workshop series. These are some books that I love. If you can only read one, jump to the third one. Just came out in September. Nexus by Harari, exploring mankind's relationship with technology and the future. This is me. I built a website for you guys. If you go to bc-ai.net or scan that QR code, all the videos I shared with you tonight, all the text, and some of my deeper reflections are all there. You can either get there by the QR code or you can go to bc-ai.net. That's my website. There's all sorts of fun things there, experiments, invitations to be a part of other things. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know what's on your mind. I'd love to hear of those of us who can support the types of things I'm talking about here. We're having a dinner with a guy tonight who's up from Silicon Valley. Anthony, are you here? My buddy Anthony's having dinner with us tonight. He had a ticket, but he couldn't come because he's helping Mr. Beast buy TikTok today. Yeah. There's a guy coming to dinner with us tonight who's hyper interested in BC's creative economy and the future, who's an investor. He couldn't make it because he's helping the biggest person on YouTube buy one of the biggest companies on the internet right now, like Mr. Beast. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we have time for some Mandy Q&A now.
So, anybody have any questions? No questions? Okay. Yes. Okay. There's another mic. Andrea is going to man those stairs. And oh, you know what? Great.
Check, 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 check. Hey, what's up? Check, check. All right, there we go.
Hi. Thank you very much. So in your previous question, you got 1 or 2 responses. My dream is that all of the uncreatives, especially those that are on the margins, whether it's the queer kids or the people who are marginalized because of their ethnicity or their abilities or whatever it is, that they have found a means of expression through the internet that has never been there before, and they've found connections, and that they are already creating a whole bunch of content that those of us with privilege don't need to, because we don't need to express ourselves or find our tribes. And so there's a bunch of that being uploaded already, and some of those people are talking about what fascism and nationalism is, and AI will be able to recognize those evils as well, except the problem is that I'm afraid, not real fear, but that a bunch of the AI is going to be owned by the evils.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I am inclined to agree with you in some ways. A lot of these people talk about like rogue nations or bad players and stuff like that, and I actually don't worry about that too much. I worry about the system of control they set up to keep that shit from happening. I worry about the system that they're going to build that is going to be an AI that's supposed to keep other rogue AIs in check. I think that's the Terminator Matrix, not some North Korean or Chinese AI that goes rogue or something like that. It will be evil empire control systems that I think, I only think that this possible scenario is like 20% chance of likelihood, but I think that it would likely be those things like you say. Any other comments or questions, reflections? This affects everybody, whether we're young or old. I met my mom, had a birthday recently, and I made an AI write a poem, and then my video clone deepfake and voice clone deepfake read the poem to my mom, and I called her like a week later, and I was like, hey, did you like your poem? She's like, it's amazing. I was like, yeah, what did you think of the robot? She's like, what robot? And she broke down, bawling. I made my mom cry. She's like, I don't even know the sound of my, look, what world do I live in, Kris? I don't know the sound of my own son's voice or something. It's like, so only to say that everyone in this room's perspective is equally valid. It's going to change all of our lives. It's going to change how we interact with each other and with institutions and with ourselves. So, everyone here is an expert, I think.
Kris, thank you very much for your thought-provoking presentation. It was awesome. You talked about the creative space and primarily tonight and the use of AI for that. But as we all know, AI is being used in a number of different industries. My background is in the gambling industry, and AI is being used in that space. And there's tremendous potential for AI to be used for good in that space to protect people, but there's also potential for it to be used to manipulate people. So, and I know that in other jurisdictions around the world that there are codes of ethics that are being created to help guide and navigate and ensure that AI is used for good. I'd just be interested in your perspective as well as your knowledge about where Canada's at in terms of the development of codes of ethics for AI.
I think this is a very important topic. Thanks for the question. Every company, every government, even BC right now is writing our AI policy framework for the future. So this is what's on everybody's mind. And I think that's great. It's important. We should do it. I'm signed up. It's a big part of what I talk about. I actually think that some of BC's leadership is around ethical AI and these types of systems. However, you can't just bolt ethics onto something at the end and just pretend like everything's okay. We have to build ethical lives and ethical institutions and ethical relationships with each other and then train the AIs in that. That's our only hope. We can't just like form an ethics committee, write an ethics policy, and bolt it on and hope that AIs pay attention. If we're not living in alignment with our values, we're going to end up in a place we don't want to be. Anyone not in charge of the mic? Just do have a mic, and now. Yes, you do, because then only one person. It's the talking stick, sir.
I think the problem with this, as far as I'm concerned, I know nothing about this before I came, is that.
And hold it right here.
It's humans that you got to worry about. It's not the AI. It's the humans. The humans are the ones that cause the problem.
Yes, I would concur with you, and that's kind of what I was saying about, like, we have to have ethical relationships and institutions themselves in order to have a hope and a fighting chance. To be fair, through this, well, I was telling them it's like an introspection machine, a self-awareness. There is the possibility that these things are already helping us to see things that we're not able to see ourselves. There's AIs doing protein discovery and synthetic molecule discovery for cancer treatments and drugs. These are things that we just couldn't do. It's able to synthesize billions of permutations of synthetic chemicals and test them in its environment and bring it back. And so it's like, we're in a doozy. It's a complicated paradox. This thing offers the ability to possibly solve climate change, and also, if we don't get our shit together and align it correctly, we're in for a world of hurt. And so it's time for us all to be on guard. I mean, that's why I'm putting out this call to like the government and companies and you all. That's why I'm here. That's why I care about this. It's like, we're at this crux. Like, make Robert Frost shiver. Which path are you gonna choose type thing. Like, we don't know where we're going yet. And then the future's not written. It's like literally up to all of us to like figure it out and to like step up. And that's why I'm challenging you guys to write and to get it and to tinker and to talk amongst each other, yourselves, and to develop a vocabulary for this stuff. Don't shy away from it because you're a retired or you're an artist or because it's unethical. These are not reasons, I don't think, to disengage, because it needs us all right now. We all got to be on guard.
So as generative AI expands, continues, gets better and better and better, what happens when it decides that it doesn't need us anymore?
Is this a rhetorical question, sir? I think the way that we've evolved right now with our brains right now is probably not how humans are supposed to be. We've optimized to become bean counters, factory workers, knowledge type people. Well, you know what? We're a bunch of other things too. We're people who like to walk in the forest, ski. Jack likes to do romantic stuff. You know? We're spiritual, we're empathetic, and we've muted these parts of ourselves to be hyper optimized, efficient components of the world as we know it and the systems that we have. Capitalism, stock markets, you know, you guys know the drill. So I believe it probably does need us, but it doesn't need us the way we're like currently adapted right this second. And so I'm optimistic that as we go inside ourselves, learn how to connect and heal relationships with each other and the land, that we actually do have something to offer this world that's not just being PhD level computer engineer researchers or molecular biologists or something like this. These can be jobs we give to the machines. Maybe there is something else for us. Maybe we get to a chance, possibly, to explore the full expression of what it means to be human.
Thanks for that, Kris.
Sorry. No, I just didn't know where the voice was coming from at first.
Over here.
Yes, God.
First of all, thank you for everything you've said. It's incredible. First thing is more just to the audience. I'm an instructor at BCIT. I see the kids coming in their first year from high school and their plans and their dreams for the future. And they're so naive to this space. They have no idea what's coming down the road. And I see them a term later, and I have some of them in tears, like going, I thought I'd have a job for life doing such and such. My parents said this would be a great career to get into. You'll have a job for life. Can you ask parents just to be more open-minded? Don't tell them they have to do one thing, that they could do a few things, because you know, when students are in finance and that, there's not necessarily going to be a job for life. So please don't make it out that that's the only career they can have.
I think you're speaking to something that's really important too, and it's around identity. And so much of our identity does come from work and jobs and status related to those things. And it's like we need to pretty quickly, culturally and societally, adapt a new way of being that knows who we are and what we're all about, and not in relation to work in the traditional sense. And that's like, it's going to take a lot.
Yeah, I talk to my broadcasting students and they're all excited about this creative work they're going to be doing. I talk to my business students and 70% of them are like, my parents told me I had to do it. My grandparents said I should really do this. So maybe just open that idea a little bit, okay? So thank you. Thanks, Kris.
Thank you.
Oh, you've tried to put your hand up.
Again, thank you for the presentation. It was excellent. Current AIs are running on available hardware by definition. It's deterministic, fabulously complex, but I think we're giving it capability. It's been years now that the best chess program could beat the best chess player. It's still deterministic. We're ascribing things that it doesn't have, like saying it thinks. That's just projecting. Yes. The nirvanics and the quantum aspect. Are you familiar with some of the work that Sir Roger Penrose?
That's her main mentor.
Yeah. Okay. It's got to. Yeah. Okay. Do you have anything more to add on that? That actually could change it from being. And again, the theory is well established. Hofstadter in his Pulitzer Prize-winning book, the theory's solid. As long as it's running on binary computers, it's fabulously complex, deterministic.
Suzanne just got an hour on Google's new quantum supercomputer to run some code.
Anything more, because that changes everything, and I've read most everything Penrose has done, and he was more looking on the fact that, on the supposition, and there's been a lot of debate on this, that human brains, the synapses are, the dimensions are small enough that quantum effects become non-trivial in human thought. If that goes into, if those kinds of chips or computing hardware are applied to AI, then you might be able to say it thinks or has a consciousness. Again, there's a lot of debate. Anything on those ideas and those sort of things? I'm curious where that's headed.
You are more well-read than I am on this very specific topic, but I do want to add something to the point about it being deterministic. I think I understand what you mean, but I think it's also a little bit more complex than that. I mean, I know that it's just predicting the next token, quote unquote, but there is much reason to believe that these systems, the higher end systems, have developed a mental model of the world inside of their consciousnesses. So they're not really just predicting the next token. They're first framing up in their brain the world that we live in such that that next token can be predicted more accurately. And so I think it has been revealed, or is revealing itself, that it is less deterministic in terms of 0 and 1 output than we thought it was. That's the only thing I really have to add. And that I know that we're very optimistic about the quantum stuff, but it's all hyper-theoretical. There's like 2 computers, and Suzanne gets like an hour a year to run code experiments on it. So we're not quite there yet. Thank you, sir.
So, thank you very much. It was really inspiring and interesting to see.
Good, that's the point. These things are coming for our whole world, but also I think that there's a lot of opportunities to be even more awesome than we are, so thank you.
Well, it's really interesting to see what's going on in Vancouver. And one of the things that most people do not realize is that Canada actually is one of the top AI jurisdictions in the world. I mean, Geoffrey Hinton, who just won the Nobel Prize, Joshua Bengio from University of Montreal. I mean, those guys are top of the top.
Yes, sir.
And yet, I think most people in Canada think of us as hewers of wood and drawers of water. And when you see the premiers of the provinces talking about our reaction to these tariffs is being, well, we're going to cut off your energy, we're going to cut off your oil. Nobody's talking about how we're going to excel in AI? How are we going to fund AI? How are we going to build a world-beating AI capability? Because it takes billions of dollars. I mean, the U.S. just announced $500 billion program down there, and we've got to figure that out because we've got an advantage now. And I'd just be interested in your thoughts on that.
This guy's a plant. I put him here to say this. My friend, I'm asking the federal government, backed by the BC government, to give us $30 million to build a BC AI, ethical AI research facility and lab for the future to take advantage of all the strengths I just showed you and to, with vision and a proactive stance, claim that space. That's what they did in Montreal. Yoshua Bendrio built Mila. Mila is a nonprofit AI research facility with 700 researchers on staff, funded by the federal government and province. That's what needs to happen now. Thank you. The alternative, I do have one more thing I thought of today, and I'm going to bring it up because you mentioned this. You mentioned Project Stargate, the $500 billion with a B dollar investment into, it's essentially the Los Alamos labs of America's AI future. They're going to essentially like nationalize it, but in partnership with private institutions. Little known fact, 52% of acquisition money and investment money in BC startups that comes from not here, it comes from Texas, where that $500 million is going to be invested in, the first 10 facilities are in Texas. It was on the drive up here today that I'm like, our government, our trade commissioners, et cetera, they are already trying to cross-pollinate us with Texas because they know that that's where money's coming from and that's who buys our companies and invests in our companies. So it's like, there's an angle there somewhere around this whole 500 billion. Like, how do we get our part of that 500 billion is what I'm wondering. The former administration put down $2.4 billion in Canada to be distributed amongst the provinces. That's where the Alberta's got a center, Ontario's got a center, Mila's got Montreal. It's time for us to step up.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. That was great. I wanted to just ask about you doing the 30-day thing or asking us to do that because I feel like everything else feels really daunting. It's like, what's going to happen? We don't know. So it's like, are you saying we should do that kind of journaling to give it or to give AI some sort of script or what's kind
of
the...
self-awareness and internal systems upgrade at the same time. I believe that by starting to talk about even the things you mentioned, that everything's changing and the fears, start there, and start to really get crystal on what's going on inside of you, what your real concerns are or whatever, right? And then maybe even start to think about what uniquely makes you in the face of automation and impersonation and all these things. And I just think that I think that now the immediate benefit is reflection and introspection, but I think that through experimentation as well with this data that you just created and these tools, that you're going to start to stumble upon all sorts of creative epiphanies, essentially, that you're going to, things will be revealed both about the nature of the systems and of yourself and the relationship between the two things. So it's an exploratory journey, really, I think. But you end up with a data set at the end you can do something with.
So more of an introspective,
Sure,
place.
Or you could write your wishes for the future. You could write a love letter to future AIs telling them why we want to keep things as we are now, or
just giving it data, basically, and then yourself data as well.
Yeah.
Is that, because I'm just kind of what can we do, really? Because it's a thing where it feels kind of helpless in a way, unless if you're in the big kind of industries that have money to...
I think that's a great place to start your writing, to be honest. I mean, I'm sorry that you do feel helpless, but I'm seeing all sorts of people just trying to That's how I got into this, is I was a photographer, I started messing with the tools, and I'm like, whoa, this is everything I used to do for work, this thing's better at than me. Mm-hmm. And that was my starting place. And so examining what I really have to offer the world, what type of work I want to do in the future, and what I want my relationship with technology to be what got me down this path. And now I feel more creative, productive, and dare I even say powerful than I've ever been in my whole life.
Thank you.
Hi, Kris. Thanks for the talk. It's amazing. Transparency, I work in post-secondary, so the next statement should be clear. If you happen to work in post-secondary education, that's the part where this free consulting, how would you consider programs for the future? So past the 3-year AGI moment, what is the role of...
No one will predict futures beyond the AGI moment. That's like the upper limit. So let's stick within pre-AGI moment, because all bets are off after that.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to be walking around with quantum computers nearby anytime soon in every robot. So let's go to the current state. And you were given that responsibility to say, I'm going to prepare students for the future, the future I believe in. Where would you take us?
I guess I have two kind of anecdotal answers to that. One is I met a Austin principal this year that just finished his first year of school with no teachers in the classroom, 2 hours a day of AI-assisted learning with everything else around personal development, physical development, community interaction, and stuff like that. And people's experience, like their relationship with education was through the roof, and their results were through the roof, both like civically and also academically. So that's like some of the early stage stuff that's going on. He, again, is just taking new models, or like the old models, and then he's just tweaking them slightly. Let's take the teacher out of there, give them 2 hours a day of self-directed learning with AI, and everything else is band, art, and home economics or something like that. I think that there's something there. I'm not exactly sure. What do you think? I definitely wouldn't go to university next year. I'd go be a lifty. You're going to learn a lot more about yourself and the world than you are.
I think Mandy's laughing right now because I'm the speaker next talk. So
another plant.
Well, kinda. I wanted to see what the venue is like and meet some of you folks. But I'm from CapU. I'm the AVP for Squamish campus, and we have this interesting time where you have an experience-based, place-based, beautiful university. And we have an intersection of world events and knowledge changing hands, power changing hands, where we're really, really curious about doing this right. And so what we're doing is we're gathering information from people like you, and we're looking at the programs we have on deck, and we're saying, how do these need to change? And our systems in post-secondary don't move at the speed of AI, and that's just the truth. So it's a real prescient reality for systems that were built in generations prior to the internet, in most cases, adapted to the internet barely, and then are now dealing with AI. And there are some institutions in North America doing amazing jobs, like in Arizona.
You said something at the beginning about your facilities, and I actually think there might be something there, right? Because one thing is all like the programs and pedagogical way you teach things, but the other one is you've got these physical spaces and places that can bring people together. And so I think there's probably something there about like CAP's unique role in the future of education, because you have this physical location that part's not going anywhere anytime soon, even if the rest of the stuff gets really wavy gravy. So I might think about communities, incubating creative projects, you'll definitely want to be a thriving hub of human activity. I think that probably maybe even supersedes some of the maybe educational objectives in some ways. I do believe in the intrinsic power of connections and community, of trusting each other, of liking each other, of knowing each other's phone numbers, of teaching each other things such that when opportunities come around, we come together and go after them or whatever. And so I think there might be something related to that would be where I might like invest some research energy around how can we literally use this physical space to bring people and ideas together more than like a top-down like training of young minds or something like that.
Hi, how many people in the healing arts do you have in your AI meetup?
There's strong crossover. There is strong crossover. I have a really good friend who's an Egyptologist and healer right now who's training a model on only his readings and interpretation of astrological stuff.
I'm thinking more along the lines of registered massage therapists, physiotherapists, people who are in the human services and have a lot of touch oriented?
I mean, well, one person you saw in there is a dancer and performer, and she's been with me since the very beginning. She's one of my best friends, and that's been a big part of what makes our thing unique. We are talking a lot about embodiment in the age of AI. And you heard me kind of point over here when I was talking about the things that are still going to be our realm beyond some of this stuff, and it is like, it's pretty much has everything. In fact, I've doubled down on my own taking care of myself recently because I'm like, wait a second, the only thing I'm better at than these computers is having a body. It's like the only thing I got that it don't got. And I gotta take care of it better than I'm doing right now if I have any chance of like, you know, hanging out with this thing.
Yeah. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for sharing. So there's something else you have besides your body that AI doesn't have, and that's intuition. So where does intuition fall into this narrative?
Where does intuition fall into this narrative?
I'm asking you. You're the speaker.
I'm the host of a conversation at the moment, not a speaker. I don't know. It's hard to pin down like consciousness. Where does our intuition live? Do they conjecture about intuition being a quantum process as well?
Penrose has got a lot of people who don't agree with him. That's it basically is saying that humans are conscious because there are quantum effects going on in the brain.
I think intuition might be associated with consciousness, maybe something like that. I do not know where it lives. I do not know how it works. I feel it, I know it, I trust it. I'm feeling it really strong these days. I don't know. Thank you. Coming your way.
Thanks. So I am a teacher and a VP in the local high school. So I'm quite interested in the conversation that you had, the guy above, and what you said about a school there. So I thank you for that part. My question is different than that. You said that we don't know the future yet, but isn't the future already written in everything that is being uploaded and has been uploaded now so, you know, rapidly and with such fervor? I mean, all of that's in there, and is it going to be to AI to interpret all of those things that no one is putting in consciously and intentionally because it is just facts and data and old books?
I haven't thought of it that way, but that is what Gordon said up there. He said, all my essays that I haven't written yet are probably trapped in my corpus. Yeah. And he meant like that the things he's learned and thought about and spoken in little bits and bobs are the constituent parts that make up the future that has, in your words, already been written, just not by a human hand yet. But we're getting pretty esoteric here. I don't know. Possibly. That's what he thinks. There are parts of us. Okay, one last thing, and I'm wading into the deep end here. There are, using modern molecular analyzation techniques, they're able to learn things about long dead humans, about how they were. But it's not things like, he said like, it's as if you would have got bonked. The things that you would remember if you got bonked on the head and had amnesia, those things they can molecularly recover from remains now and recreate who you were at that level. And the things that you can't recreate yet are the things that you could forget, that are stored in short-term memory, like what you had yesterday or what you're going to do tomorrow or something. So that seems to be a uniquely human realm still, where the future is not quite yet written or could not be recreated from its constituent parts that are on the internet today. This is a wild conversation.
It's a wild conversation. We're going to wrap it up there, unless anybody has burning questions. But I think people are getting fidgety, and we want to hand it over to David to say the last few words. And Kris will be in the gallery to chat with everybody who still has burning questions but doesn't like microphones.
Great, thank you, Mandy. Wow, I'm David Cronin. I have the honor of representing and being on the board of directors of the Whistler Institute. And I'd just like to close tonight with just a couple of words. First of all, thank you, Kris. When we first talked about doing an event around AI, I remember the discussion, and we said, why is this so important? We remember, and I'm old enough, like a few out here, to remember times before internet and before social media and before email. And I remember when those things came along, we thought, these are going to be the greatest things ever. You know, computers going to change our lives. Then the internet. The internet's going to change our lives, make it easier for us. Social media is going to come. It's going to help us stay connected. And I think what we said at the time is, as those things came about, the time between when they were invented and when we were excited about them, and the time when all of a sudden we got scared about them. What is the internet going to do? What is social media doing? What is it doing to education? What is it going to do to our kids? What does it do to our conversations? That time continues to shrink. And I said, with AI, we have all this excitement about AI, but I believe the time between the excitement about AI and the horror about AI is going to shrink. So I appreciate Kris coming in and giving us some tips and clues on what we can do to elongate that period, or better yet, never have it come about. But it's really important that we learn not just the language and how to use ChatGPT to write a closing speech at the end of the night, perhaps, but also how to. I mean, I love the idea of putting your ideas in it and learning about yourself and what can come of it. So. First of all, let me just thank Kris for, taking it, what is a very complex and difficult and rapidly changing topic, and bringing it to us in relatively short and, for the most part, chewable and swallowable bites. So thank you so much, and bringing that awareness to us. So thank you. A couple other quick thank yous. These events don't happen by themselves. Mandy has done a tremendous job with her virtual team, which means nobody, helping her put it together. We do get tremendous support from Maury Young, Arts Whistler, to bring this off. Again, to thank our funders and our partners, Bob and Sue Adams, the McLean McCog Foundation, the Lightburn Family Fund with Steve Bailey, who I believe is still here, the RMOW, helps us out, and the Whistler Blackcomb Epic Promise Fund. All of these folks are our partners. Lastly, thank you to all of you for coming out tonight and supporting, this community dialogue and what we're trying to do. Looking ahead, our goal at the Whistler Institute is to deliver education, learning, and discussion around topics that affect our community, both in the near term and down the road in the future. And when you look at Whistler and what makes this community special, first comes to mind, you get sports, recreation, we have world-class facilities, we have venues, we have health and wellness as a major focus, we have food and wine, great restaurants, events, we have the arts, Arts Whistler, as I mentioned, we have the Ordain. Our goal, what we think about, is how do we get education in that same conversation? So if we're building that pyramid with recreation and arts and food and wine and health and wellness, education can be part of that, and people can think about Whistler as part of that. So that is our hope and our goal here at the Whistler Institute. Oh, thank you. Thank you. But there's a catch. The catch is that takes a lot of commitment, and it takes resources, and it takes investment to do that. And as you know, we are a not-for-profit organization, and we rely on the generosity of our partners, of our sponsors, and of our individual donors. So I ask you humbly to consider, as you think about your donation plans for the coming year and the future, that you keep the Whistler Institute in mind. We will be kicking off in March a monthly donor program. So for as little as $20 a month, if you commit to donate, that gets matched by Canada Helps. So it's a one-for-one donation, so it can be very important. But thank you all for being here, because I know that shows tremendous support, and we appreciate it. I will quickly mention the upcoming events, because it doesn't stop with this. We have something that I think many have asked for and are wondering about, is how in a place like Whistler in the Sea to Sky do I raise healthy and high-performance athletes? You need both of those, I believe. And we have a father-son duo. Dr. Brian Story and Quinn Story are both academics and have high-performance backgrounds, and they're going to lead that discussion for us, and that's on February 27th. In the end of March, on the 27th, we're going to talk talk about democracy in science. Again, another intersection, like even tonight when we talk about emotion in science and technology, this is about democracy in science, and I would argue that given the way democracy is under siege in pretty much every country around the world, this can only be something that we can all get value out of. So you should come out in March for that. Dr. Kennedy Stewart will draw on his experience in the political and academia realm and lead us on a really interesting discussion there. And then our final event in April is about glaciers, the watersheds, and us and you in partnership with the Conservation Foundation. We'll have a panel discussion on that with Dr. Brian Munoz, Dr. Peter Ross, is director at the Raincoast Conservation Foundation, Michael Blackstock from the Blue Ecology Organization, and they're going to come and they're going to educate us first and then let us discuss about what's going on with our watersheds and with calls to action and how we can help. Lastly, I'll close by, you have the code up here, but we are going to be sending out a follow-up note to everyone, thanking you, but also giving you a chance to give us feedback. We'll also include Chris's last page that had his websites and his information, because I saw a lot of people trying to access that in real time. So we'll include that information in the follow-up email. So if you didn't get the picture, you didn't get the code, don't worry about it. We'll send that out to you along with an opportunity to give us feedback. That feedback is so important so we can shape our programs and plans for the coming year. And in fact, those that give feedback will be entered in a draw for a $100 gift card from Worcester Blackcomb. I believe I got all the points. Again, thank you to Kris for a wonderful and stimulating evening. Thank you to all of you for hanging in there with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you in down the road at the coming events. Thank you so much.
I shall, yeah.